friends, welcome back to my channel, Voice of Persona ASMR, aka Randy, back at you with another video, and today we're going to be reading some facts about Stranger Things. I just finished watching season 3, phenomenal season, and I figured this would be appropriate and can dive into some facts. Wanted to do a roleplay video as well, but I haven't fleshed out the script in my mind yet. When I do videos, I tend to come up with some bullet points and I run based off of those bullet points, but I haven't really thought of the entirety of what the video would be about yet. I have a general skeleton, but it's not fleshed out enough for me to make the video just yet, so figured in the meantime this would be a good video that we can do. So let's dive into it. Here we have 50 things you didn't know about Stranger Things. It's going to be a gallery, it seems, so here we go. It was created by twin brothers Matt and Ross Duffer. They made a movie, Hidden, and it worked on M. Night Shyamalan's Wayward Pines before writing a script based on the premise. What if Steven Spielberg directed a Stephen King book? The show was originally called Montauk. It took place on Long Island in 1980, but the Duffers had to change the show's location when they realized it would be too difficult to shoot there in the winter. So it's originally going to be in New York, I guess, which is pretty interesting. But I think the setting works better. They're in the Midwest, I forget where they are in the Midwest. Hawkins, Indiana. They're in Indiana. Works better, I would think. The Montauk Project inspired the show. The alleged government experiment took place in the early 80s and involved kidnapping kids from Long Island to experiment on them. You can read all about it here. Actually, I've never heard of this before, so it would be interesting to take a look in our spare time. My spare time, your spare time, you get what I'm saying. So it makes sense that they would want to do it in Long Island since that's where it's based off of, but that's very cool. I don't know much about like the rationale behind Stranger Things, so most of these facts are probably going to be brand new to me, and maybe to you as well. The Duffers auditioned 906 boys and 307 girls for the children's roles, and they made each kid read parts from Stand By Me in the audition. That's a lot. That's a vigorous screening process. So like when you think about like how perfect some actors seem to portray a character, this adds a little context to that, right? It's like they screened 900 people before they found the right character. You know, they beat 900 other people to become that character. So that's why you end up with these really fleshed out characters, and the actor just does a phenomenal job portraying the character. So it's pretty cool. The now iconic title sequence was inspired by motion graphics designer Richard Greenberg. He designed the titles for films including Alien, Superman, and The Goonies. The Upside Down's real name is the Nether, or Neither, Nether probably. But they got so used to calling it the Upside Down on set, it stuck. Millie Bobby Brown revealed in Beyond Stranger Things. The same thing happened with the Shadow Monster in Season 2. It's supposed to be called the Mind Flayer, and now, as we see in Season 3, they are calling it the Mind Flayer. As you can see, this is 2017, so some of the things are not up to date, but they are calling him the Mind Flayer now. It's the Mind Flayer. But the thing about the Upside Down, it actually makes more sense than the Nether, because when you think about who discovered this world first, or this dimension, or whatever it is, it's a bunch of kids, right? And it makes sense that a bunch of kids would call it the Upside Down, right? It's something simple that immediately just delivers the message across. I don't think that they would call it the Nether. It's a little more advanced for a bunch of preteens. The Doofers cast Gaten Matarazzo, after watching his first audition tape. When you see someone like Gaten and he pops the way he does, you're just like, this kid, we're putting him in the show. 100%, Matt told the New York Times, and he is one of the favorite characters in the show for sure. So definitely great casting choice there. Stephen King found Millie Bobby Brown. Long before the Doofers cast her as 11, King tweeted his love for Brown on the British show Intruders. Millie Brown, the girl in Intruders, is terrific. Is it my imagination, or are child actors a lot better than they used to be? I think it's that. I don't know. That's a good question. Are child actors better? I think it's that they have way more advanced plots to work with. It seems, with more like crazy special effects, and things are just being built off of the foundations that were set in previous generations. So it makes sense. It's going to get better and better. The Doofers convinced Winona Ryder to play Joyce during a 4.5-hour meeting. We actually talked very little about the show or the character of Joyce. We were mostly just getting to know each other. The Doofers told EW. Ryder joined the project the next day. My phone went off a little bit. Apologize for that. Finn Wolfhard is a movie fanatic. He already watched all the movies the Doofer brothers assigned for research, Ross told the New York Times. In the original script, the teens, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, used the Christmas lights to find the monster. But one of the writers pitched the idea of Joyce using them to communicate with Will. Seeing Winona Ryder react with joy, then terror, then hope to a glowing ball of Christmas lights is now one of our favorite scenes from the show, they write. In EW, what's EW? I don't know what it stands for. David Harbour wanted Hopper to wear a hat in homage to Indiana Jones. Early on, he even asked if he could have a giant boulder roll after him at one point in the show. The Doofers wrote, "We're still not sure if he was joking or not." Joyce's hairstyle was inspired by Meryl Streep in Silkwood. Ellen Burstyn and Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and Marsha Mason and Max Dugan returns, and Audrey Rose influenced Winona Ryder's performance. It was Caleb McLaughlin's idea for Lucas to wear a bandana in season 1. Sometimes our kids have great ideas, and this is one of those times, the Doofers told EW. Steve was supposed to be the biggest douchebag on the planet, and he was in a way, in the beginning. A lot of credit goes to Joe Keery because he was much more likable and charming than we originally had envisioned, Ross Doofer told Variety. And he's now a favorite. Steve Harrington is great. Matthew Modin helped to create his character, Dr. Brenner. Dr. Brenner was particularly hard. I'm going to move my microphone a little bit over so I can read better. Was particularly hard for the Doofers to write because you see the character so little on the show. He informed it, and I'm really happy with where we wound up with him at the end. With something that was discovered during the course of shooting, Matt Doofer told Empire. Let me check my phone real quick because it's like going off right now, and it's going to keep going off. I think so. Alright. Okay, we're good. It was nothing important, of course. Brown's performance was inspired by E.T. Matt and Rose were like, basically, you're going to be an alien, she told IndieWire. The Doofers used the fake body of Will to scare Noah Schnapp's mother. We took Noah's mom aside, told her we had something to show her, and led her into a dark closet where we had propped up this frighteningly realistic corpse of her son. They write in EW, she was startled at first, and we felt like maybe we crossed the line. But after the initial shock, she loved it. Millie Brown once showed up to set covered in glitter. It held up production for half an hour, the Doofer brothers told EW. Production did in fact use 1,200 pounds of Epsom salts to make Brown float in the kiddie pool. The show's colorist adds scanned 80s films grain to each frame to give the series a vintage vibe. Ah, that's cool. I never really picked up on that, but yeah. Actually, when you think about it, yeah, that's cool. The Doovers used photos of Charlize Theron in Mad Max Fury Road to convince Brown to cut her hair short. Her dad cried when they shaved her head, but Brown calls it the best decision I've ever made. It's not like it's not gonna grow back, you know? Like, it's not that serious. Her dad cried. It's like, chill, dude. It's not like they're chopping off her arm. Barb was Shannon Purser's first role. I was thinking, this is the biggest thing I've ever done, and how cool would it be if I actually got this? And I did, she tells Esquire. The Demogorgon is an animatronic, and it scared the little kids on set, including the twins who played Holly Wheeler and Millie Bobby Brown's little sister. Someone told the kids the monster came from Monstropolis in Monsters, Inc. to calm them down, the Doovers wrote. The movement of the petals on the Demogorgon's head never repeat. They had a life of their own, moving in unpredictable and bizarre manners. That's probably the point, right? To make it look more eerie and creepy. The show's music is composed by Michael Stein and Kyle Dixon. Members of the band survive. The Doovers heard their music when it was used in the film The Guest, and convinced Stein and Dixon to quit their day jobs to work on the show full time. An average of 8.8 million people watched Stranger Things 2 in its first 3 days on Netflix. Stranger Things 2, I think they mean season 2. And 361,000 people watched all 9 episodes in its first 24 hours. Dustin says, totally tubular in reference to Max's California heritage. In 1984, everyone thought Californians sounded like Sean Penn in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Totally tubular, dude. Party wave, bro. Brown cried after filming the scene with Papa in season 2. She called it one of the hardest scenes she's ever filmed on Beyond Stranger Things. Dacre Montgomery danced shirtless to Come On Eileen in his audition tape for Stranger Things 2. He also wore a G-string. I was thinking either I'm never going to work again, or somebody somewhere is going to see one thing in me and they'll give me a chance, he told GQ. The Doofers loved it. I've watched thousands of auditions now, and it's by far the most bonkers that I've witnessed, Ross told Vulture. Millie Bobby Brown almost quit acting before she landed Stranger Things. I felt at one point I couldn't do it anymore, but then I got this and everything changed, she told Variety. Bob wanted to move to Maine is indeed a reference to Stephen King. But Matt Doover notes, Bob definitely does not read Stephen King. He hates that kind of story. Poor Bob. Writer helped Schnapp with his performance in season 2. There was this one that I was worried about, so I just texted her. Hey, can you help me with this? Can you come in and talk to me about it? And she came in like an hour and a half earlier. Then she was called in for, and she brought me in her trailer, and she talked to me. Schnapp told Vulture. She gave me tips and guided me on how to do the scene. And she was like, you'll do great. You'll do it. You'll do great. So that's nice of her. Gaten Matarazzo came up with the idea of Dustin's purr. It's based on his Chewbacca impression. Brown has CG hair for the flashback scenes in season 2. It's kind of expensive, so thank God it was only for that one short sequence, Matt told Vulture. We wouldn't have been able to do that the whole season. David Harbour didn't use a stunt double for Eleven's psychic tantrum. Matt calls it a really intense day of shooting. Steve's risky business costume is a nod to Nancy's love for Tom Cruise. There's a Tom Cruise poster in Nancy's room, Matt told Vulture. Apparently, Tom Cruise is just like, if you want to use that poster, you can use it for free. He just loves that picture of himself, I guess. There were no problems getting rights to that. So that's pretty cool. Erica Sinclair was supposed to have a much smaller role. Priya Ferguson was just a local hire we made in Atlanta. Matt told Yahoo. Erica wasn't supposed to be in season 2. As much as she was, we fell in love with this girl, and I thought she's very jiffable, if that's a word. And she ended up playing a pretty big role in season 3, so there you go. The Doofers had to ask Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman's permission to use the costumes. They were very nervous about the phone call. His tone was very serious. He seemed very skeptical, and he was like, "Can you explain why you want to use Ghostbusters in this?" Matt remembers. We had this very nervous speech about what Ghostbusters meant to us. He made us go through the exercise, but he already decided to let us do it. He was like, "We're very flattered by it. Of course, we'd love to have you use it." That's pretty cool. That's really cool. The best relationship in season 2 wasn't part of the original script. When we first pitched the season, there was no Dustin and Steve bromance. Ross revealed in Beyond Stranger Things. There are 2 characters that are both a little heartbroken, so we thought that they could help heal each other. And we see that in season 3, they end up, spending a lot more time together and doing a lot more important things, so that's pretty cool. They used chopped beef and watermelon for the raw meat in the train track scene. And Sadie Sink was grossed out because she's a vegetarian. So, sorry. Sadie Sink was almost too tall for the role of Max. She told New York Magazine, at one point they told me, "Oh, we think you're too tall. I don't know if we should let you read for it again because you're too tall." The team behind the show worried she would tower over the boys, but luckily they grew to match her height. So it worked out. Bob was supposed to die much earlier in season 2. Ross Doover told EW. They originally planned to kill Bob around episode 4. But they liked Sean Astin so much they kept him alive until episode 8. So there you go. If you liked Bob, he was actually not supposed to last that long, so. And Will was supposed to kill him. The Mind Flayer would have killed Bob through Will. The Doofers revealed on Beyond Stranger Things. That would have been something else. Yeah, that would have been awkward for, Will and his mom. So, Dart is completely CGI. Stranger Things 2 had a much bigger visual effects team than season 1. Excuse me. Sean Astin asked for a violent death for Bob. In the Stranger Things 2 after show, Beyond Stranger Things, Ross Doofer revealed, "We were not going to make it as memorable as we did." And then he kept talking about Jaws and Quint being ripped apart, and I was like, "Alright, man, we'll do it." And it was an awesome death scene for sure. The cast group chat is called Stranger Texts, but according to a Vulture profile, they prefer to play board games and cards on set rather than bring their phones. So that's pretty cool. They're really embracing this 80s sort of environment, aren't they? David Harbour ships Joyce and Hopper, which he dubbed Chopper. He said as much in Beyond Stranger Things, but don't we all? The Doofers asked Warner Bros. If they could direct a remake of It, and Warner Brothers said no. Not surprising. Netflix wanted to shoot seasons 3 and 4 back to back, but the Doofers and their executive producers said no. Fortunately. I think that's it for this one, right? Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything else. I've got another tab open here with 20 more facts. This might be a little more up to date because it's around the time that season 3 recently came out. So let's see if there's anything on here that's new-ish. Let's see. Some might be surprised to learn that Stranger Things was actually sold to Netflix under the Working Montauk. Yeah, so we know this. The Duffer Brothers had originally intended for their sci-fi horror series to take place in Montauk, Long Island, but after the series was picked up, the location was changed to Hawkins, Indiana. Interestingly enough, the Duffer Brothers chose Montauk because of the city's connection to the Montauk Project, an alleged government experiment involving the abduction of children during the early 80s. A significant source of inspiration for the brothers is script, but we'll discuss in more detail below. Okay, so let's see. Are they going to talk about the Montauk Project as mentioned above? In the early 80s, there was an alleged government experiment that took place at the Montauk Air Force Base in Long Island that involved kidnapping young children for experimentation. The government is said to have been experimenting with time travel and psychological warfare techniques, all of which are detailed in Preston B. Nichols and Peter Moon's book, The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time. The Duffer Brothers used the alleged incident as inspiration for the sci-fi horror series, which is said to be a love letter to the golden age of Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, and you can definitely get that vibe from this show, 100%. The show was rejected more than 15 times before finally landing at Netflix. Stranger Things creators Matt and Ross Duffer had their show rejected by seemingly every network on Earth. In a 2016 interview with Rolling Stone, the brothers estimated that the show was rejected anywhere from 15 to 20 times by various networks. As they explained it, the chief reason why nobody wanted to touch Stranger Things is that network executives could not wrap their minds around the idea of a show that featured kids as leads, but wasn't actually a children's show. So, there you go. Fucking morons, am I right? You either gotta make it into a kid's show, or make it about this Hopper detective character investigating paranormal activity around town. One network executive told them, Matt recalls replying, then we lose everything interesting about the show. Considering how successful this show has been for Netflix, we're sure there are more than a few executives out there who are kicking themselves for not picking up Stranger Things when they had the chance. And that is the perfect example of how, when you look at people who are in these positions of power, they don't always know what the fuck they're doing. They don't always know, because they play it safe, they play by the rules, they have a rule book, they have a script, and they don't deviate from the script. So when something innovative like Stranger Things comes around, they reject it, and then they kick themselves. And then the next thing you know, they're trying to sign shows that are the same as the Stranger Things. They copy, they regurgitate, but they can never give original ideas a chance because they can't come up with original ideas themselves. I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a rant there on my part, but that was fucking gold. I'm so glad that Netflix got it and not these douchebags. That's what they get. That's what they get. I'm sure like Warner Brothers and fucking places like that rejected it. Fucking douchebags. Casting the children took time. Although it may sound a little excessive, the Duffer Brothers actually auditioned a staggering 906 boys and 307 girls. Casting the children can be... I'm going to skip some stuff because it's the same as the previous fact sheet, fact article. Casting children can be a difficult task for a handful of reasons, which is why we believe the Duffer Brothers deserve a lot of praise for casting such a talented group of children. Millie Bobby Brown is an outstanding actress poised to take over Hollywood, and hilarious Finn Wolfhard has already landed roles in 2017 remake of Stephen King's It, as well as Jason Reitman's upcoming Ghostbusters 2020. It's only a matter of time before Caleb McLaughlin and Noah Schnapp and Sadie Sink and Gaten Matarazzo begin landing bigger roles as well. As mentioned above, the Duffer Brothers auditioned thousands of children for Stranger Things, but according to the brothers, Gaten Matarazzo's audition tape was simply unforgettable. During an interview with the New York Times back in 2016, Matt Duffer explained that they had to comb through thousands of children's audition tapes, many of which were turned off after 5 seconds until they got Matarazzo's audition. The minute we saw Gaten, who plays Dustin, we basically cast him off the first tape that he sent in. Yep. The Upside Down has a ton of backstory, and I got another text message. I don't know why I'm so popular this evening, honestly. Usually no one ever texts me, so it's pretty funny that's how it works. It's weird. Let me mute my phone real quick so it doesn't go off. Okay. The netherworld realm, known as the Upside Down, is the beating dark heart at the center of Stranger Things. And according to Ross Doover, there are tons of backstory behind it. In an interview with Variety, Doover revealed that there's an intricate 30-page document about the Upside Down, detailing what it all means, where this monster actually came from, and why there aren't more monsters. Oh, cool. The brothers plan to explore the Upside Down's history more in later seasons of the show. Sweet. I'm actually very excited about that. Very, very excited. Pennywise says, hello. Watching Andy Muschietti's 2017 adaptation of Stephen King's classic horror novel, It was hard not to be reminded of Stranger Things, as both are set in the 80s and feature children as the leads. That's probably because those connections weren't accidental, as the Doover brothers have been pretty upfront about Stranger Things being heavily influenced by King's work. In fact, the duo originally pitched a remake of It to Warner Bros., but was turned down due to their lack of experience, and went on to create Stranger Things instead. Thank God that was the case, because Stranger Things is great. The It connections don't end there, however. Finn Wolfhard, who plays Mike Wheeler, also stars in Stephen King's It as Richie Dozier. Wolfhard was actually offered the role of Richie before being chosen to play Mike, and nearly had to back out of Stranger Things before development delays on It made him available to participate in both projects. In a knowing wink to King's story, the final episode of Stranger Things' first season sees the kids trying to kill the Demogorgon monster with a slingshot, which is similar to how the kids use a slingshot to try and kill Pennywise, both in his clown and spider forms. Other Stephen King nods. It isn't the only Stephen King work referenced in Stranger Things, as the series actually alludes to quite a few of the Master of Horror's stories. The series logo, for instance, resembles the font used on the covers for the original 1980s edition of Cujo and Christine, and at one point a state trooper guarding the morgue can be seen reading the former novel. Phil Callahan, a police officer at the Hawkins Police Department, can be read as a reference to Father Callahan, a character from Salem's Lot and the Dark Tower series. Another slightly more subtle nod is the fact that Eleven's nose bleeds whenever she uses her telekinetic powers. This symptom is shared by David Keith's telekinetic father in the 80s cult classic Firestarter, which also stars a young Drew Barrymore. This movie is based on Stephen King's novel, and interestingly, Barrymore plays a telekinetic girl pursued by the government who wants to use her powers as a weapon. Sound familiar? The actor who plays Dustin has a real medical condition. During the pilot episode, when the boys are confronted by a group of bullies, Dustin is mocked about his teeth, to which he replies that it's because he has cleidocranial dysplasia. Not only is this a real medical condition, but it's one that Matarazzo is actually affected by. He was born with cleidocranial dysplasia, a rare congenital disorder that primarily affects the development of bones and teeth. Typically, the collarbone is either poorly developed or absent, which pushes the shoulders closer together. In Gaten's case, his condition is mild and non-genetic, which means that his particular affliction is actually extremely rare, as the condition is typically passed down through the genes, which is great for him, which means that, when he gets married and has kids, at least he doesn't have to worry, that it's going to, affect his kids. So that's cool. That's got to be a huge burden lifted off of his shoulders in the future. He's not thinking about that now, obviously. In addition to Stephen King, Stranger Things also pays homage to another famous Steve in Steven Spielberg. One Spielberg reference that is carried on throughout the series is the Hawkins Police Department's vehicles and uniforms, which are identical to those used by the authorities in Jaws and Jaws 2. Specifically, this includes Chief Hopper's tan uniform, the Amity Island triangle-shaped patch, and the beige SUV used by Roy Scheider's character. The blue uniforms and hats are worn by patrolmen also match the Amity Island police uniforms from Jaws. The show, in general, has a very Spielberg-inspired vibe, with the director's 1982 film, E.T., the extraterrestrial being obvious influence. Here are just a few examples of the E.T. Stranger Things parallels. Both feature early scenes of a group of boys playing Dungeons and Dragons. The scene where Will runs into the shed in Chapter 1 was an intentional homage to a similar shot in E.T. The bond between Mike and Eleven is reminiscent of the friendship between E.T. and Elliot, and both the shows and movie feature a scene where the kids escape from government agents on their bikes. And the Duffer brothers have admitted that Winona Ryder's character Joyce was heavily influenced by Roy Neary, the character played by Richard Dreyfuss in Spielberg's 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 11. All the child actors in Stranger Things are great, but if one were to declare a breakout star, it would be Millie Bobby Brown, who has been sensational as far as the mysterious telekinetic girl 11. Interestingly, Brown was 11 years old when she was cast in the role, and even though she only has approximately 42 lines of dialogue in the first season, she was able to make a lasting impression. Part of the reason for that was likely due to Eleven's shaven head, which was modeled after Charlize Theron's heroine from Mad Max Fury Road. You can actually find footage of Millie Bobby Brown's mom shaving her daughter's head in preparation for the role, an event that was apparently so traumatizing for her father that he ended up sobbing and not being able to watch. And again, I say, what's the big deal? It's gonna grow back. And it did. So, Silent Hill. Stranger Things' inspirations don't begin and end with 80s pop culture, as the series seems to draw inspiration from the Silent Hill video game series, particularly Silent Hill Homecoming. There are obvious parallels between Silent Hill's Otherworld and The Upside Down, as both mirror the real world, but are decrepit environments shrouded in haze, falling ash-like flakes. Both worlds also feature living wall portals, and at one point in Stranger Things, an agent named Shepard tears into the wall so he can pass through, just as the character Alex Shepard does in Homecoming. Mike Wheeler bears a striking resemblance to Alex Shepard's little brother, Joshua, and the Wheeler family name is shared with Deputy Wheeler from Homecoming. There is also a prominent character named Elle in Silent Hill, Homecoming, and an Eleanor Gillespie is mentioned in Stranger Things at one point. Interestingly, the Gillespies are an important family in the Silent Hill mythos, and the character Alyssa Gillespie is a telekinetic girl who spends most of her life in a hospital, similar to how Eleven spends most of hers in Hawkins National Laboratory. Earthbound nod. I didn't realize there were so many references in this, jeez. Another prominent video game reference can be found in the blonde wig and pink dress disguise that Mike and his friends dress up Eleven in. Role-playing game aficionados will recognize that Eleven's appearance is nearly identical to that of Paula, a girl from the 1994, not 1944. Super Nintendo's not around. Super Nintendo classic Earthbound. I've actually never played that one. Similarly to Eleven, Paula also possesses psychokinetic powers and travels around quaint American towns on bicycles, with boys fighting otherworldly evil. The Last of Us connections. Holy shit, there is no end to this, huh? Another game that shares a few similarities with Stranger Things is The Last of Us, the award-winning action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog that features a man named Joel accompanying a young girl named Ellie on a journey across the post-apocalyptic United States. The Doofers have explicitly noted that The Last of Us is a game that inspired Stranger Things. One connection that the Doofers have alluded to is the similarity between Eleven and Ellie, as both are similarly named preteen girls with remarkable qualities. Additionally, Eleven reminds Sheriff Hopper of his deceased daughter, just as Ellie reminds Joel of his own child who passed away. That's really cool. It's a lot that has gone into this show. Some of the episode titles are homage to classic horror. Each episode of Stranger Things is designed as a chapter, and while some of the episode titles are pretty straightforward, The Vanishing of Will Byers is self-explanatory. A few of them are references to other horror-themed stories. Chapter 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street, could be a nod to Stephen King's short story, The House on Maple Street, but also seems to be clearly referencing Rod Sterling's Twilight Zone classic. The monsters are due on Maple Street. In the episode, a group of neighbors are gripped by fear. The paranoia after gradually becoming convinced that alien monsters are invading their neighborhood, and they eventually turn to outright murder. The people end up being the real monsters on Maple Street, but the episode ends with the shocking final reveal that there are in fact two aliens manipulating the power grid on the street, and coming to the realization that conquering the planet would be a simple task if it was this easy to turn humans against each other. Meanwhile, Chapter 4, The Body, is a straight reference to Stephen King's novella of the same name, which was later turned into the movie Stand By Me. The story of four friends who set out in search of a dead boy, their age, just as the group goes looking for Will. Many scenes in this episode parallel the events of Stand By Me, particularly the scene of kids walking along the railroad tracks when they hide out at the local junkyard. The final noteworthy episode titled Chapter 7, The Bathtub, is possibly a nod to the famous bathtub scene in The Shining. The Demogorgon. The boys named Season 1's monster after Demogorgon from Dungeons & Dragons, and this is an actual monster from the game. In the game, Demogorgon is the powerful, self-proclaimed prince of demons who lives on the 88th layer of the abyss in the palace with two twin towers shaped like tightly coiled serpents. Besides both being monsters, however, there aren't many similarities between the two Demogorgon and the D&D version, as the D&D version has two snake-like heads with individual minds that are ironically bent on killing the other, but can't because they are one and the same being. And while the Demogorgon is a real Dungeons & Dragons creation, the Veil of Shadows is not, and seems to be based on Shadowfell, a plane connected to the material world that is populated by the undead and evil creatures. The Lord of the Rings references. In addition to the Dungeons & Dragons references, another fantasy property that the Stranger Things boys are obviously big fans of is J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. As such, there are a few allusions to Tolkien's work, most notably when Joyce goes looking for her son Will at Castle Byers. As a flashback where it's revealed that the password to get in is Radagast. Radagast, of course, is one of the 5 wizards from Lord of the Rings. The other 4 being Gandalf the Grey, Saruman the White, and Alatar and Palando the Blue Wizards. And an interesting bit of stunt casting, Sean Astin, who played Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings films, plays the character Rob Newby in the new show's 2nd season. Connections to The Walking Dead, it just doesn't end, right? Stranger Things is well recognized for its many homages to classic 80s films and pop culture, but you may not have noticed that the show has some connections to another horror-themed TV series too. While there aren't any explicit references to AMC's The Walking Dead and Stranger Things, the two series are linked in a couple of small ways. For instance, twin actress Aniston and Tinsley Price, who play Mike and Nancy Wheeler's younger sister Holly, made her acting debut on The Walking Dead, playing baby Judith in the show's 4th season. According to the Doofers, the twins made the most of their limited screen time by improvising all of their best moments, such as when she gets upset by Dustin and sinks in her chair in Chapter 2, and when Joyce asks if she saw something in the wall, and she replies back confidently, yes. Additionally, the scenes at the quarry are also the same location used in The Walking Dead Season 1 episode Vatos. It also appears in the Netflix movie The Fundamentals of Caring. Steve was originally going to be a huge D-bag. One of the most surprising character turnarounds in Stranger Things has to be Nancy Wheeler's boyfriend, Steve, who started the first season off as kind of a jerk and a bully, but ends up performing by the end and becoming an all-around decent guy to the point where he and Nancy actually stayed together. According to the Doofer brothers, Steve was actually originally not supposed to have a third act turnaround, but actor Joey Keery was so good and charming in that role that they felt like they had to give him the proper arc. He was much more likable and charming than they originally had envisioned. If you read the pilot, he's the biggest douchebag on the planet, Ross Doofer said. Joe was so good we start to fall in love with the idea that he has an arc himself. He's maybe not the perfect guy, but he's maybe in with the wrong crowd. As opposed to him turning Nancy to his side, maybe it's more Nancy turning him to her side. We liked giving him that arc. Looking back, we probably should have seen Steve's turnaround coming, considering he wears the same shoes as Marty McFly from Back to the Future throughout the season, and as we know, Steve Harrington is a favorite now, so it is a good character progression, I would say. Nancy on Elm Street. The character Nancy Wheeler, played by Natalie Dyer, is actually an homage to Heather Langenkamp's character from the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, to the point where her clothes and hairstyle are similar at times. The similarity between the two only becomes more apparent as the first season draws to a close. Just like her Elm Street counterpart did with Freddy Krueger, Nancy Wheeler is determined to stop the monster that is terrorizing Hawkins and sets up a number of traps to try and kill the Demogorgon. The final showdown is also reminiscent of Nancy's battle with Freddy Krueger, only this time neither of her male friends is swallowed up and murdered by their pets, like poor Johnny Depp's character was. There you go. So there you have it. I think this video is probably over 40 minutes long, so I'm going to end it here. But I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I'm a pretty big fan of Stranger Things. I think it's a really good show. And reading comments, or not comments, reading facts about all the stuff that goes into the show just makes me appreciate it even more, because you see just how much effort is put into little specific details, you know, paying homage and references to previous works of media and cinema. It to me is extremely awesome, because it just shows that, like, this show is a culmination of so many different pieces of inspiration, and that's what makes it so good, which I love to read about. So I hope you found this as fascinating as I did. This was probably, I have to say, probably one of my most favorite fact reading videos I've ever done, you know, like ever. Maybe my most favorite. This was really enjoyable for me. I could keep going, but gotta cap it here. So thank you for tuning in, and have a good night, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, my friends. Take care.